all those who have logged in just and viewing us live, seniors, ladies and gentlemen. I welcome you all on this experts chat on impact and issues on demonetization. Exactly 10 days before, our beloved Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi, made an historic announcement of demonetization of the 500 rupees and 1000 rupees note, which are no longer now a legal tender. What did it lead to? Last 10 days we have all been seeing utter chaos, long serpentine queues, unfortunate deaths, people unable to meet the daily needs, stock markets falling, APC markets lying empty, transporters, daily wage earners having no work, and wastage of productive man hours standing in queues. The big question is whether there was another way of doing this. But a silver lining is there. We are all seeing that nearly around 4 lakh crores of money has entered the banking system, and it looks like by 30th of December we may have by around 8 to 9 lakh crores, and it may really have a big impact on the economy. The immediate impact of demonetization we are all witnessing, but what will be the long-term impact on the economy, and will this be a political game changer is a big question. We have already seen the opposition uniting on and meeting the president on rollback. The WhatsApp has just not stopped. We are having surveys, opinions, and jokes and whatnot. And I think we are now started framing our own views based on our WhatsApp, what we receive, and making judgmental calls on the wiseness of the decision. The biggest questions and debates have been on the tax front, whether the demonetization or whether the large deposits that our clients or we want to make, whether will lead to penalty provisions or not, what will happen to the prosecution, whether this is correct, the 270A applicability, and so many questions. And I think we are all going to debate today all those questions, and I'm quite sure you all come here for that answers only. Supreme Court, however, has taken a very strong view today, and they have observed that if this chaos is not controlled, it may really lead to riots. So let's see how now what steps the government plans to do. But the best thing that has happened over the last 10 days, is that we have seen a spurt in the economists. There are so many economists now in the country, so we get all the views about the GDP, the inflation, what is happening in the global arena. Yesterday I was in a meeting, and a very interesting insight was shared that whichever country demonetizes, that government has fallen. The same is true with in case of implementation of GST also, and our PM has done both. He has done demonetization, and he is going to implement the GST. Maybe I hope that two negatives make a positive, and we don't see any impact on that. So let me introduce the three panelists. Ms. Sucheta Dalal is the founder trustee of Money Life Foundation and managing editor of Money Life magazine, a well-known financial journalist. She was awarded the Padma Shri for her investigative work spanning 2 decades, which includes breaking the Harshad Mehta scam in 1992. She has worked with several of India's leading newspapers and was the financial editor of the Times of India and consulting editor of Indian Express. She co-authored The Scam, a bestseller on the security scam from Harshad Mehta to Ketan Parekh, and has written a biography of E.D. Shroff, a financial wizard from the Tata Group. She directs the socially oriented reporting at Money Life, the foundation's activity and grievance redressal activities. Ms. Dalal was a member of the N.R. Narayan Murthy Committee on Corporate Governance, the Primary Market Advisory Committee of the SEBI, and the Investor Education Protection Fund of the Ministry of Corporate Affairs. Please join me in welcoming Ms. Sucheta Dalal. Then we have Mr. Dharmakirti Joshi. He is a chief economist in CRISIL. His purview includes demand forecasting, assessing macroeconomic scenarios, and analyzing and monitoring the impact of macroeconomic, domestic, and external shocks on the economy. He has extensive experience in the macroeconomic analysis and medium-term assessment of the Indian economy. He was a member of the working group of savings for the 12th five-year plan. He is also a member of the industry monitoring group of Reserve Bank of India. He was the chairman of Economic Affairs Committee of the Bombay Chamber of Commerce and is currently member of Economic Policy Group of Confederation CII and the Indian Merchant Chambers. He regularly writes for leading newspapers and expresses his views on the economy in the electronic media. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Joshi. And who doesn't know our dynamic chairman of the Direct Tax Committee and the past chairman, Mr. Amit Patel? He is a partner in Manohar Chaudhary and Associates. He has spent a large part of his professional career dealing with taxation matters, and he has focused on tax matters of FIIs, banks, mutual funds, QIFIs, and now FPIs. He's a member of the Finance and Taxation Panel of the CII's Western Region and also the Bombay Chamber of Commerce and Industry. He is an independent director and on audit committees of various companies. He is also actively involved with the activities of the Institute and the WRC. He has made
I'm talking to people who know. So all of you know that demonetization has to be highly secret. And the minute he starts discussing it, everybody talks about preparation. And I feel you cannot prepare, because the more you discuss it, then you would have had people sort of changing notes well before. So it has to be secret. There will be less preparation. There will be only three or four people who know. And one sign was 3 days before this happened, 3 or 4 days, we got a press release from the RBI saying banks should keep more 100 rupee notes. And I remember looking at it and saying, it's strange that this should come from the RBI, because we always find that the RBI is the last to react. And the first complaints come to people like us in Money Life, because people will say, why are banks giving only 500 rupee notes? We're not getting. So we had not got a single complaint that, there aren't enough 100 rupee notes. And I was surprised that RBI is putting out this note to banks. Now, everybody says banks didn't take it seriously. I don't blame the banks. Why would you take it seriously? Because a bank is going to keep as much currency as it can stack in its ATM. So if people are okay with 1,000 rupee note and 500, they're going to keep more of that and less of hundreds. So I don't blame the banks. They never listen to the RBI unless a whip is cracked. They don't look at suggestions unless it's an order. They don't listen anyway. But this was just 3 days before. Okay, I wish this had come a month earlier, so that people had done it at least. Okay, let's not be entirely against RBI. Let's keep a few more 100 rupee notes. Whether the printing of 100 rupee notes was enough, that's something that's coming out. So what I what I have a slight issue with, let me make it very clear, I'm 100% in support of this action. But I feel post facto things should have been done differently. Even today, I think, what you talk about APMC. I would have liked to see the Chief Minister and Vinod Taude there looking at APMC instead of saying Marathi theatre can pay in old currency. I mean, what are your priorities, right? So I feel that he doesn't have a team in place even after it's happened. I have, got 30 years experience in journalism, and I have covered things like RBI senior officers who have done wonderful things. I don't know if I'm talking a little longer, but I'm just going to put a little bit of perspective. That I don't know if you all remember, the first currency scare was during Y2K. Okay, people said, what's going to happen to currency? You'll not be able to take it out. I know someone in Kashmir who moved 2,000 crores using mules, so that their branches were prepared for this Y2K issue. Then all of us know that I think in the early 90s we went through this soil notes issue. Okay, everybody had notes stapled in plastic, and I don't even remember. I mean, I don't know if some of you remember how bad it was. Even this was sort of transformed by one person in Chandigarh actually taking the currency chest to the market and saying RBI is standing here and we are going to exchange your currency. Forget the banks. RBI is there itself. I mean, I'm looking at things today and say it's 10 days. Why are these people not being called back? Some of them are retired. If we had people who were doing bold stuff like this when there were not enough helicopters and other things to carry currency around, I think a lot more needs to be done. I think the government, the Prime Minister's office should have a call center which takes calls to say, what's happening in the APMC market, what is happening in the heartland of Uttar Pradesh, what is happening in the backwaters of Orissa, so that emergency action can be taken, money can be, sent over there, and let's make a success out of it instead of playing into the hands of the opposition.
You mentioned about the banks. I think whether or not they were prepared, it's very clear now that they have really risen to the occasion. All the bankers, the entire staff of all the banks, especially public sector banks, because the pressure is not really on the private sector banks, which are the new ones where the common man doesn't generally go. If you see the queues, they are far longer outside the PSBs, and the kind of work that the staff of the banks have put in, I think as a nation we need to be grateful to them for once, for having really stood up to the occasion and made a great effort to resolve this particular crisis. Mr. Joshi, she talked about Reserve Bank. A lot of people have been saying that whatever money gets finally out of circulation, out of the several lakh crores, presuming that, as President mentioned, say 8 9 lakhs crores or 10 crores, 10 lakh crores, whatever comes in, the balance is obviously lost because people have not been able to deposit it and declare it. So that is lost. So there is a view that that will be like a dividend which the RBI will declare to the government. Is that correct? Is it that simple? And does it work that way?
Well, I think before I get to that answer, let me also give you my, because I was most disrupted by this move.
Yeah.
I was in Chandigarh and we had a GST conference in the university next day. And when we started the evening before discussing this, I think the news came that Prime Minister has declared this. So, I mean, completely the agenda was hijacked. And I think the rest of the day until next morning, I was spent. I mean, I was analyzing because we had to come out with something next day. So spent on analyzing what happens when this actually hits people. And the immediately after that, the conference was when we spoke about GST, but there was hardly any interest in GST because that Mr. Trump's results were also coming out. So by the time the conference was over, there was another event, shock, which was Trump. And then I think so. I was the first one to be disrupted, I would say, by these two sets of news. Now coming to your more serious question on, so there is I think there are a lot of things floating around as to this is going to be a benefit to the government, or some people even arguing that this is going to be a wealth transfer from the corrupt people to the government, and then government can use it for the economy, etc. Now, I think the life is not that simple. I mean, the central bank's balance sheet, it will reduce the liabilities because not everyone will return the currency. So they will have a part of the currency which is nowhere. So the liabilities are reduced. So many people believe that that can be treated as profit and then be transmitted to the government. So which means a fiscal gain for the government. Now, RBI does give its profits to the central government. I think they are about 55,000 crores or 60,000 crores. But this money cannot be treated, I mean, in the same manner. And many people have warned against it. I think Subbarao, Rangarajan, I think I mean, when they were asked this question, they were also thinking through it, and they kind of recommend that this is not the right thing to do because this is sending a wrong signal. And so I don't think government will be able to use this money. I mean, the way it is being thought about, that it will reduce it and then government can spend it for XYZ, because I think in a bank balance sheet, this probably will move to what is called the net non-monetary liabilities. I think there's a vague term which appears on the asset side, which with a negative sign. So I think it will stay there probably, and that's my sense, unless they amend the act and they decide that okay, this money can go to the government. So I would be skeptical of this being used to reduce the fiscal deficit of the government or as a bonanza to the government. I don't think that is going to play out that way.
So WhatsApp message number one is false. Yeah.
Well, I think it's. I think there's a lot of misinformation
Yeah, of course, yeah.
that the social media circulates, and I think it also creates echo chambers. I mean, people like what they want,
Yeah.
and then there's mutual. So everybody is in their echo chamber,
Yeah.
and I think either they're criticizing others and they're praising who are in their own chamber. So. I mean, one has to look at it very carefully, and it's been analyzed very vigorously for the U.S. election results. I mean, how social media actually made things worse. I mean, rather than spreading information, it actually destroyed information in some sense, or biased people. So anyway, I think.
Another matter which has also been talked a lot about, on various forum, and particularly the opposition leaders, and especially one of the uh, most famous opposition leaders, is that Modi ji has cancelled 500 rupee notes and 1000 rupee notes and brought in 2000 rupee notes. How is that going to curb black money? And in fact, Modi ji is not at all clear as to how he is going to bring about reduction in the black money. Uh, do you see any incongruency in the whole initiative of curbing black money, that you do away with 500, do away with 1000, bring in 2000, then again bring in new 500 rupee notes?
Well, I think what happens is the black money, you have to understand how the black money gets generated, and I'm sure I don't need to explain here how it gets generated. The point is, this is only going to reduce the stock of black money a little bit. and which can be replenished within 6 8 months. So I think it's not a solution for curbing black money. Counterfeit money, yes, I think that will disappear, and there is a significant amount of counterfeit money. RBI has been also, I mean, mentioning this. It's a menace. So that part it will deal with. But I think what it will do is, I think this action has also created, which many believe is some sort of a fear factor that these kind of moves are going to come. So it's better to be compliant than to get into. So maybe that force might play out together with the fact that we have GST coming, and also the fact that the digitalization of the economy will make it extremely difficult, or rather more difficult
to curb black money, and it's been a failure twice. And from what you suggest, it's going to be a failure again. And I think I agree with you. There are a lot more steps that are required. But the point is about this 2000 rupee note. I mean, when people haven't even got the 2000 rupee note, you already have evidence of the first bribe being paid with 2000 rupee notes, which is all over social media. They've arrested the guy. But it means that it's business as usual. And as you said, all the memes and the cartoons are already coming out about traffic cops taking people to ATM saying withdraw and give us a bribe. So if it's not going to curb the bribes, and if you're not going to take all the other measures that will make corruption less, then I think 84% of the currency has been affected by this. Everybody has 500 rupee notes. I think people are going to ask the political question, was it worth putting us through this kind of harassment? Because this is different from the 1000 rupees, 5000 and 10,000 that were demonetized in the past. Today, everybody has a 500 rupee note and a 1000 rupee note. Even, not very rich people, when they're salting away money to keep it under their pillow, they want it as one note. They're not keeping 10 rupee notes in a stack, right? So this question is going to be asked if the government doesn't wake up fast and, resolve this problem in 10 days and take a series of other measures. And we believe that those are happening. Whether they'll be effective or not, that remains to be seen.
Yeah, I think I just want to add that this, I mean, black income is, I mean, maybe it's a big step that government had announced in the beginning, that it was a big agenda for them to control black income. So the foreign money you couldn't get, I mean, that's very clear. And on the domestic front, so you started off with this measure, which is having a lot of implication apart from curbing black money, because you're not hitting where you need to hit. I think you are carpet bombing in some sense. I mean, so everybody is getting hit.
So there was a reference to the fear factor. Uh, there was a ref- Yeah. So there was a reference to the fear factor. Now, and also, you mentioned that this is a one in a series of steps. So the Prime Minister and the PR agencies of the government, etc., would want us to believe that this is clearly a well thought of strategy. He kept on giving warnings, he kept on giving hints, etc., and then finally this has been brought on to us. So the question that arises is that is has he been successful in driving a sort of a fear into the minds of people? In the common man, probably yes. The common man may be afraid now of what next can happen. But do you think, since you are so cued onto the ground level and you are in touch with various strata of the society, do you think someone will think twice before accepting or giving black money? The bribes and all, I mean, RTO taking $100, 500, I think that is the smallest of our problems. What we are really concerned is with the large, ticket bribes and the large ticket black money transactions that happen. Uh, Fighting against black money and corruption is necessary, but will the fear psychosis work? And B, will it cause any damage to the psyche of the nation and of the society?
See, there are two things here. I think this whole country has been focused on the bribe giver. And it's very unfair because the bribe giver is the victim. Nobody on earth wants to give a bribe. Okay, some of them will want to give a bribe to break the rules, okay? But by and large, most people who face this extortion, whether it is the RTO, whether it's a factory inspector, whether it is the municipal officers who come, they are extorting from us, okay? Nobody is giving a bribe happily or willingly. So today, if you say the fear factor has to be on me, and that, I know somebody who did not pay a bribe to get his property card for a property for 15 to 20 years. He said, I don't want to pay a bribe. But now he's 75 plus, and he says, I have to sort this out for my family. Ultimately, he had to pay a bribe. So the message this country gives you is that you have to pay. And I don't see any of these measures attacking the bribe takers. So as long as political funding is non-transparent, it is not by checks, I want to know where is their money. Because we are all talking about your problems and mine. I'm talking about my Istriwala the other day. I'm talking about, I know so many people who did not want to sell their property without taking some cash element. In Bombay, it's not so bad. You look at places like Jaipur and Jodhpur, you just cannot sell anything unless 70% of it is in black. These are innocent people. I mean, they have had to take cash because that is, in 92, I remember ANZ Grindlays Bank went and said putting a check into the stockbroker's account when it belongs to another bank is accepted market practice. So I think today some of these people should say, hey, I didn't want to take the money in black. It is an accepted market practice. I had no other way. So I think we want to see this situation changing from the bribe giver to the bribe taker. And as long as the bribe takers are not extorting, I have seen nothing. I heard that, lot of the money is safe in the tax officers' cupboards in Aikar Bhavan next door, because nobody is going to come and raid that. If you're not going to change that, then I don't see what is the point in the pain that's being caused.
Hmm. Yeah, you're absolutely right. You mentioned about the fact that somebody is forced to sell a property partly in cash and partly in check. So over the past few days, I'm sure every chartered accountant in this audience as well as online would have had a question that from a genuine person, an honest taxpayer, who has been forced to accept X lakhs by cash, and he is now asking, what do I do with that money? I have never evaded tax, but I was forced to accept this. So we have had questions like this coming, that I've got so many lakhs in cash because I had sold a property. That fellow forced me to take cash. There are people who have genuinely got savings, whatever, few lakhs, few thousand. Everybody is asking now the question as to what to do with the cash. And related to that, so I think there are two aspects to this whole thing. That one is the actual deposit of the money into the bank accounts and bringing it into the mainstream, bringing it back into the mainstream in some cases. And the other is the tax impact. I'm sure a lot of people would be, thinking about the taxation. So maybe, just a couple of issues on that before we get back to the other two panelists. One is that we are talking about a genuine person, particularly say, for example, housewives. Most housewives would have saved over the years some bit of cash at home and which is lying at home. I think those kind of instances, or where people have, whether not housewives but even the common man or say a senior citizen, for the sheer reason that one doesn't want to unnecessarily go out of the house, get inconvenienced to go to the bank and withdraw money, they may have withdrawn in bulk and kept it at home, and this cash is lying at home. So there are a number of such instances where genuine money is lying at home. I think in all those cases, the government is also very clear. Prime Minister has also made it clear that when you redeposit that money, provided it is not more than 250,000 rupees, there should not be an issue. It will not get reported. You don't have to worry. And I have every reason to believe that at least to this extent, one can have faith in the government, in the Prime Minister, and they will not harass the particular depositor. But there are other instances where now people have started misusing this. That okay, 250,000 is the limit. So now you find all the different people connected to you. Your maid suddenly becomes important. Your cook becomes important. Your ironing the dhobi and the istriwala, etc. Everyone is now being offered that in your account, your father's account, your mother's account, etc. You put in 250,000. You keep 20,000 and give me back 230,000. Unfortunately, these kind of things are happening, which means that people who are genuinely in the black money business are still brazen about it. They have still not got a scare in their minds that what this government or this prime minister is capable of doing to them. Time will only tell what will happen to them, But in those kind of instances, I think there is a lot to be worried about. We as chartered accountants need to be careful while advising anyone who comes up with these questions. Uh, Today itself, the finance ministry has issued a series of tweets, on Twitter, warning people not to indulge in these kind of activities. That finding benami people to put money into their account and then withdrawing it. They warned that this should not be done, and strict action will be taken against those people. Now, we may debate as to whether the government will be able to actually do anything on this kind of matters, whether they will be able to, first of all, detect these kind of cases. After detecting, will they be able to pursue these cases and bring to tax anything? Time will tell. But one needs to be careful while, unnecessarily roping in innocent people, the poor people, and getting them stuck into this, because the state will say, I have not done anything of this kind. There will be no way that poor lady or the poor man will be able to prove that the boss has given the money to that person. So one needs to be careful about that. Uh, there is a lot of criticism against the Prime Minister that there are many ministers, there are many people close to the ruling party who themselves are very corrupt, and nothing is happening to them, but the innocent people are suffering. Any thoughts on how the finance minister, the prime minister, can win the confidence of the people, the common man, in this context? That don't worry, right now you are facing the problems, the pain, but we have something in store for catching even others, the rich and the powerful. Any thoughts on that?
Actually, no thoughts. I'm going to just come back to that one sentence that I said, that the credibility of this exercise would have been a lot more if we had seen some action about political funding. Because all of us have seen that even when somebody becomes a newly elected corporator, within 2 years or 1 year, he's going around in fancy cars. And we have seen all this before our eyes. And we are still looking at them today, because after that first day's announcement, the next day all of us were looking around to see who's panicking, and we find that within a day or two all of them have settled down. They have figured out a way, and that is what worries us, because at the end of the day, I like the warnings that Jandhan accounts don't put more than 50,000. People are going to put it. I think eventually that money will get confiscated, because how much will you harass? Bank of Baroda took a guarantee from somebody, the back of Beyond, for Vijay Mallya, right? At the end of the day, you'll have to let the guy go. The guarantee is gone. So similarly, you'll go after all these Jandhan accounts with 2.5 lakhs, and whatever they've withdrawn, good luck to them. The rest of it will probably have to be confiscated or traced. But I think the message is not going, because people believe that ये politician को कुछ नहीं हुआ तो हमको नहीं होगा, right? And I think that message has to come very fast. That's part of the way of dealing with this.
So I think we, the people of India, need to send out a strong message to the Prime Minister that unless the real source is attacked, unless the mouth of Ganga is really looked at, all the tributaries and the stream downstream, it doesn't matter, because it will again start percolating down. I think that's the message that you're saying. But since you also may be talking to all kinds of people, do you see the politicians shaken up by this? Is there, especially the opposition guys?
I think all the guys who are on a morcha against this are definitely shaken up. I think that amuses all of us.
Yeah. And sorry.
And
Yeah.
I think just to add to that, sometimes there is a panic reaction. I was mentioning I was in Chandigarh, and we were at the sector 2 and sector 1 are the richest sectors, big houses and Porsches and other. When we were coming back after dinner, there was a long queue of all luxury cars outside petrol pump. I mean, this is how irrational an reaction can be. They're trying to save 2,000 rupees. Anything, I mean, so you just react. I mean, many reactions are completely irrational. That's what I wanted to say. I mean, I was counting cars. There was no shortage of petrol. It was just that the petrol pump was accepting 1,000 and 500 rupee notes.
So coming back to hardcore economics,
Yes.
with the 5 lakh crore, 6 lakh crore, 9 lakh crore, whatever number of crores of rupees, we'll lose count of the number of zeros in that. But when that money comes into the system, into the banking system,
Right.
they will be flush with funds.
Sure.
And is there a situation which will arise where the government borrowing gets reduced substantially, the fiscal deficit gets controlled, interest rates? How do you see interest rates going? In the next few things.
Yeah, sure. I think what will happen is even if this bonanza, so-called, doesn't go to the government, there are some spillover effects on the economy which are going to be positive. Now, many people believe that these deposits in the banks probably could be used for infrastructure, etc. I don't think that is feasible because banks are already bearing the brunt of lending to infrastructure, and they're not going to touch it with the barge pole. Number one. Number two, these deposits, how long they will stay, you don't know. I mean, people might start withdrawing them. I mean, so you will be back to, so you can't treat it as a long. But what is definitely happening is because so much of cash has entered the banking system, they're flushed with liquidity, and there are very few opportunities in the economy to put your money. Creation of credit is only right now advisable to the retail segment, not to the big. You won't give your money to a steel guy right now. So I think the point is, short point is, banks, where will they keep money? They'll either go to the reverse repo, I mean, with the Reserve Bank, or I think they will, traditionally what they like to do is government securities. So the demand for government securities will improve, and which means that government, what that will do is the yield will come down, the price will go up. That's what happens when the demand increases, and as a result, you will see down. So RBI's willingness to cut rates will improve. And I think if you saw the last policy of the central bank, they said that there are some upside risks to inflation which we need to be mindful of. They will cut rates, but they also.
Perspective, but the consumer's perspective, is he likely to start spending that?
Well, I think consumption is initially hit because the shortage of cash which we have in the system. It's not that all the money that was stored is coming back. It's the genuine 500 which were used, 500 and 1,000 rupee currency notes. They are also being returned to the banks. So difficult for small and medium enterprises. There's no doubt about it. And it's not only if you don't deal it with crimping the GDP projection down. So clearly, a impact on overall demand via the consumption route, that is bound to happen.
Isn't that worse? But that if economic growth slows down, isn't that a bad thing?
But I think that bit, which means investment revival will also formal money lender quite a bit for buying seeds, etc. I think there are informal contracts that already happen for many of the farmers. So how, I think that is where government should focus now. I mean, that ensuring that
everyone is now looking at either becoming a farmer or getting married, so that they are able to withdraw cash. But then that option is not available to a lot of people. So, yeah. There was a mention about GST. So, with GST hopefully coming in, of course, there is a question mark as to whether it will actually they will be able to roll it out on 1st April. But if that happens, do you think that will compound the problems of the businessmen? And because also it will lead to a situation where so many people who were hitherto not in the system will suddenly find themselves thrust into the system because of compulsory registration and so how will it play out?
Well, I think if you look at GST, I think the way it will play out will depend on how the GST is formed. I mean, if they have too many rates, too many exemptions, I think you're starting with a not with a good GST. If it is not bad, but it's not definitely not good. And I think one of the problems with GST that India faces is that in most countries the goods and services tax was levied at a smaller rate, and then eventually it was when the compliance increased, the rate was increased. New Zealand has one of the best functioning GSTs. They started with 10%, raised it to 12.5, and now eventually at 15% it's frozen. Australia started with 10% and they are trying to raise it to, because with lower rates you get more compliance. I think we are unfortunately starting with a higher rate, and I think no government will reduce tax rates. I think particularly, I think it's very difficult to visualize. And we are starting with a slightly crimped form of GST, but nevertheless, I think if it you can't make good be the enemy of the best be the enemy of the good. So let's say it's going to be better than the previous regime. And if that is the case, it is going to start having an impact on the economy. The positive impact will take 2 to 3 years. I mean, it's not going to be immediate. Even in the logistics sector, which is going to be most benefited by goods and services tax. I mean, our analysts point out that the logistic costs will start coming coming down over a period of 1 to 3 years, because it will take time to realign your logistics. It's not immediate. I mean, so there is a efficiency gain, but it's going to take some time. So I mean, I would say that GST will could be disruptive in the short run, because I think particularly in the services sector, there was one tax and one authority. Now you will have so many you will have to register in each state. It could be a nightmare for some of the financial players, because I think you're buying a mutual. I mean, you're selling a mutual fund from Bombay. I think you have a branch somewhere else. So I think it's going to complicate the process. But I mean, it's a short-term disruption again, like this move that government took, because I'm pretty hopeful that technology can take care of this matching issues. I think it's I mean, I'm a great fan of technology as allowing I mean, these are problems which can be easily sorted out through technology. I mean, there are algorithms and so many things which can very easily do it. But in the short run, there will be some I mean, the kind of compliance time will increase. I mean, that's my sense for particularly for services.
Can I just
Yeah,
add?
sure.
It's a matching issue, but it's also, for the ordinary person, it's a compliance issue. As in, most people who are in the highest tax bracket, they feel quite offended at the high service tax on a lot of things. So electricity and telephones is deducted in any case. But for everything else, from your beauty parlors to whatever, people feel a lot of anger about having to shell out another. And if it's going to be as high as 16 and 18%, that is going to act as a generator of black money, because most people's attitude is, if I can withdraw the cash and pay it. And we've kept asking this question to people, and
Uh, I mean, let's see how it plays out. I think there is a lot of issue in India, because in GST, the states are also conceding their constitutional space. They had the right to collect taxes, so it is going to be. I mean, some irrationality will also come into the negotiations.
So anyway, we don't want to discuss the pros and cons of GST, but just on the GST front, do you think now with this winter session appearing to be getting washed out every day because of the opposition protesting, will anything happen on the GST front? Of course, it has gone to the GST Council, but would the government be able to bring back the focus of the parliamentarians on GST? Any thoughts?
I think politically the government itself has to think about whether they are capable of handling it, whether they're going to create just another round of chaos. And I think, having done demonetization, they have played one big card. They're not, if they're going to do it again and it's going to be learning on the way with a lot of harassment to people, I think this BJP government can forget about coming back to power. And I don't think that there are sensible voices who are saying this. For instance, I mean, one can have any opinions, but Subramaniam Swamy is an economist, and he's been saying you are not prepared for GST. It's not the right thing. You're not talking to people down the line who are the smaller traders and SMEs. And this country is run on SMEs. I mean, you look at the numbers, and it's very clear it's not big industry and the large corporate houses that are giving the tax to run this country. It is the smallest hawker, trader, SME, and you're not talking to them at all. So if this creates chaos at that level, I mean, I hope it gets delayed for all our sakes, because we would like some change in India. We don't want the same old system, but we don't want it to be so chaotic that people get fed up.
Yeah. Moving on from GST, there have been a lot of questions, about
Created currency for certain
purposes.
transactions,
Yeah.
going to a hospital, petrol pump. So it's not that, I mean, you can't. I mean, the currency is neither black nor white. I mean, it's currency. So it's the purpose, I think, that makes it that way. So I would. I mean, it's very difficult for me to answer your question whether it is.
Sure.
It depends on the purpose. I mean, so if you're working in the norms set by the government, maybe I think it's okay. But if I mean, if you are transacting in the illegal currency on a full time basis, that's not something to be.
Yeah.
Well, I think no. Why will you accept? It is worth nothing. I mean, so
Yeah.
why would
No,
you
so
accept?
I'll come to that. So 31st December is one cut-off date. The other date is 31st March also, because you have time up to 31st March. But Rashmin bhai, you have any thoughts on this about the illegality of acceptance?
No, but if it is permitted for that's right. That's legal.
Okay.
Yeah.
Apart from that, it's of no value. So why would you accept it? I mean,
The relevance of the question that I'm asking is from a tax perspective. I'll just come to that. No, so yeah.
Main question is how is black money generated? What are the sources of black money? From where black money comes? That you have not addressed.
Okay, we have not completed yet. So, so, huh. Okay. All right. So there is I mean, lot of people feel that it may not be illegal. Some people feel that it has been demonetized. It is therefore not a valid currency. So you should not. The reason for asking this, Sucheta, is that there are questions that the last date for submission of the currency for exchange or deposit is 30th December, and thereafter up to 31st March we can deposit in certain RBI branches. Now, either after 30th December and before 31st March, or even after 31st March, if there is a search or a survey by the tax department, they come to my house and they find a bag full of 1,000 rupee notes, say valued at 10 lakhs, for example. Can they take a stand that this is my undisclosed income and add it to my taxable income? Is the issue now? If a stand is taken that it is useless currency, then I can take a stand. This is just another piece of paper like all other my newspapers and raddi that I've collected. How can you add that to my income? So that is the issue. So a lot of people are asking this question as to whether what will happen in case of a raid post either 30th December or 31st March, and if the money is found in my possession. My personal view is that between 30th December and 31st March, if it is found, if you are able to explain it, you can take a stand that I have time up to March to redeposit. So I have kept it. I will go and deposit it in Reserve Bank, and if you are able to explain, you probably can get away with it. After 31st March, the question arises that if you are unable to explain it, can it be added to my income? It's a moot question. We'll have to, do brainstorming on
can
this.
I ask a counter question? I mean, what does the tax department achieve by catching that currency at all? I mean, Bombay is a hot city, but if I was in Kashmir, I would say I'm using it as fuel, through the winter to light my fire,
Yeah.
because that is the value of that piece of paper, right? So, what is the tax department going to achieve by saying that paper is dead,
No,
other than harassment? So, if
no,
they want to
no,
continue
no, no, no.
harassment,
Forget. I mean, let us hope that a Ram Rajya comes and there is no harassment. I mean, an idealistic situation. It's not for the harassment. It is for recovering your 30% tax, your maybe 200% of the tax.
no, but you've lost 100% of the value of that money.
Yeah, but
What 30% tax on
you
that? That value is zero, no?
that is from the user's perspective, not from the tax department's perspective. They will say, We don't care. You got 10 lakhs, this is undisclosed income, you were unable to deposit it, this is your income, pay tax of whatever, 3 lakhs plus another, 6 lakhs of penalty, etc., plus interest. You pay it from wherever you want. This could happen. Yeah. Just, Rashmin.
No, it's yeah. Say very brief. I'll my rejoinder that this case after 31st March will have no value, and the decision is that income tax officer cannot do anything to you.
Okay. Thank you. This is the advantage of having seniors in the audience.
I can say take this 10 lakhs against my dues.
Hmm. Also, in one of the points that you mentioned, you referred to the confiscation of the money which may be there in the bank account of the Jan Dhan bank account, etc. So that Benami Transaction Prohibition Act, I think that is something that all of us as advisors, as people to whom people come for advice, We need to keep that in mind and not merely the Income Tax Act. We are often obsessed with only the Income Tax Act. But this would be a even more dangerous weapon in the hands of the government, and we need to be very, very careful. Of course, if the property is not in the possession of the person who has given the, done the name lending, then maybe it is possible that the government will not be able to do anything in terms of confiscation. But otherwise, it is a very, very serious tool in the hands of the government. Mr. Joshi, there was a reference earlier to various other countries and what was their experience. The critics of our demonetization initiative have cited various examples where in other countries the currency reform, whether demonetization or otherwise, has failed. For example, in 1991, it happened in the Soviet Union under Gorbachev. This failed. It led to the ultimate breakup of the Soviet Union. In 2010, in North Korea, there was a knocking off of two zeros from the face value of their currency, and that ended in disaster for that country. In Zaire, in 1993, there was a civil war after a failed currency reform. Myanmar, Ghana, Nigeria are other examples which are being cited. Do you think it is fair to make comparison with all these countries with under different circumstances, different points of time in history, or are there circumstances today which differentiates us from these examples that are being given?
No, I think there's always
Yeah.
always something to be learned from history, and I think I won't look at some of these countries like Zaire, etc. Certainly, but let's look at the experience of Europe, for instance. They also moved to euro, and they gave, I think, 3 to 4 months time for people to transition to the new currency. So there was clearly a time given, and I think Philippines also, I think, recently did something like that, and they also gave enough time to people to transition. So this, I think, so here the motive was not to just to move to a new currency, but to maybe attack black money. So they had to have a secrecy element, and that is what has complicated. Otherwise, I think this would have been a pretty smooth process. If you had given 3 months, let people do whatever they want to do. Because many people argue that even after 6 months, if I mean, it could be business as usual. I mean, that's also one set of arguments I read in newspapers. So I think so. This was a balancing between secrecy and the ease, and they moved in favor of secrecy. So the other part and you couldn't prepare, as you rightly said. I mean, if you want to be secret, you can't be preparing. Actually, I saw in some newspaper that news that before the currency was came out, the 2,000 rupee note to be introduced by the government. So there was already some leakage of information in some sense. So I would say that as far as India is concerned, I think government probably has acted in the best interest of everybody, but I think the spillover has been much more adverse than probably they would have imagined, and the logistic nightmare of printing money. It takes time to print money. It takes time to calibrate the ATM machines. All this is making the longer it lasts, the more painful it will be. So I think so they need to plug it as soon as possible and use all sorts of methods. I mean, non-traditional methods as well. I mean, RBI could also get into the act, as you say, of sorting these issues out. Otherwise, I think it's going to linger on for some time. But so there is no. I mean, every country has its own historical lesson. United States, for instance, this is the last point I want to make on this issue. They also have a issue of counterfeit currency. I mean, there is a lot of dollars which were counterfeit. We keep hearing about it. But if US were to demonetize its dollar, you imagine what's going to happen. It's going to be much more dramatic than the election result. I mean, because dollar is held by almost I mean, not everybody, but most people in most countries. So it's so because the people will lose trust in dollar. I mean, if they do that, so I think they can't afford to do that.
$500, $1,000 they demonetized because of the terrorist attacks. After there are no attacks in
Five? No, no,
more than $100.
no,
2008 they rolled out.
no. I don't remember
I think
demonetizing.
$100 is the maximum that America ever
They
had.
don't have.
They don't. I don't. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but I have not seen any news on that, because if they demonetize, it's going to be.
No, it's not correct.
Yeah. You mentioned about the source of corruption. There was also a question how the black money arises. All of us know black money is some of the biggest sources are the real estate sector, the gold and jewelry sector, etc., and of course the politicians and the bureaucrats. All of us know that. Now, you in particular, as an individual, as well as through Money Life, have been leading a crusade against corruption and against everything that is wrong in society. At present, the national fervor is at a peak. A lot of people have suddenly become, everyone is, putting up, I salute my government, I salute my PM, the tricolor everywhere. Is it the time to strike the iron while it's hot and try and create some kind of platform, some kind of, some kind of movement, which in turn will, be a silver lining on the cloud and help in, curbing the source, curbing the corruption itself, so that the black money, the flow itself stops. Any thoughts on how we can go about it at the BCA society? Of course, we would be more than happy to join hands with in such this kind of a crusade. But it is high time that somebody takes up, the initiative and starts a movement, because if it is not done at this point of time, when everyone is, at least the BJP supporters, the government supporters are fully into it and at least saying that this is for the nation. So if it is, then join hands and join the movement.
See, I keep saying repeatedly that it can't be about us, okay? Because we individually try to do a lot of things. We have very, very limited reach. The support has to come from the government by creating the kind of infrastructure, whether it's name or shame, whether it is when you've got a demand for a bribe, the manner in which you can complain, how fast they can act. We do seminars on anti-corruption. Now, when you look at the logistics of how it works, apart from the fact that you put yourself in danger when you're, complaining about corruption, because there can be a leak from the Anti-Corruption Bureau itself, and you will be in bigger trouble. We have had any number of cases where people who have gone out of their way and made a complaint, the money that they are supposed to use for the bribe gets locked up. Okay. The second is they get threats from the others. So, especially in the tax department or the police, we have found that they gang up, they come to you and they say either back off where the case happens, or we'll make life difficult for you. Now, what is it that we as crusaders can do? We watch a lot of stuff which RTI activists are doing. Now, one of the things that I find at all our seminars, every Wednesday we have counseling on RTI. And Sailesh Gandhi, the Central Information Commissioner, is hugely agitated at the fact that starting from Delhi, where they had this conclave, they say every RTI activist is a blackmailer and extortionist. So every time there is an activist, you're painting them as having ulterior motives. So I think the support has to come from the government. We have not seen that. In fact, we find, as a journalist, I find that even someone like me, who's so strongly supportive of what they have done in terms of a cleanup, the minute you start asking just neutral questions, and I think we have a right to question. I'm a journalist. I've questioned for 30 years. To have the most uninformed 21-year-old techie from Bangalore jumping up and say, "What have you done? What have you done?" I have done it for 30 years. I've done it from before you were born, and I've paid the price for it repeatedly. But to be attacked on social media by, some 2,000 people saying, "What have you done?" It is silencing people. And this government is watching it without doing anything. So far from raising the voice, as you say, I think we are pro what the government is trying to do, but we are also getting a little fed up and agitated at the fact that you can't even question. You can't say this is not being done right, let's improve it. Because the minute you question, you're seen as being anti-government and you're attacked. I think this nonsense has to stop, and this the government has to take care of, because it can't be us individuals trying to do anything. In fact, all our voices are being silenced.
Okay. Incidentally, whenever we go to the income tax department and we have meetings with the commissioners, the principal commissioners, recently we had where the president and I were there in the vigilance week, And the moment you say that, we have this problem, that problems, you're not getting it, most people don't get refunds or TDS credit, etc. They say that now there are various mechanisms for you to complain, and why don't you do it? Which is the common reply that they give. But one thing that they have been telling us over the last 1.5 years is that go and lodge a complaint on PG portal. There's a site which it apparently is supposed to be monitored by the PMO directly, and they are saying that if you put it on there, our officers will be forced to take action. Maybe the time has come to bombard the PG portal with.
No, it's being done, Amit.
Okay.
We have also been telling people go to PG portal. We've been telling people, apart from filing an RTI, which also works fairly effectively in the income tax department, we've been saying file it on PG portal. But the number of complaints there are already so huge. A, you don't get a response, and two, what is happening is they send the complaint away to whatever department and they close it. Okay, and this is what is happening. For instance, the last few days we were looking at fixed deposits of companies, and it's quite outrageous. It may be an unsecured deposit, but we've done a memorandum, we have pieced things together, written to the Minister of Corporate Affairs. It goes from one secretary to another. We file an RTI, we file an appeal, and all that we get, because we are bombarding them, is that it's going to different ROCs and sitting there. At the end of it, they have no intention of taking action, even when these companies have money. People like Unitech still have money. People like Helios and Matheson still traded in the New York Stock Exchange. And why should they have to cheat lakhs of people? Today, just before coming here, I saw a tweet by someone to Nirmala Sitharaman saying, I'm writing to you 4 times. For everything else, you write to Suresh Prabhu about not getting water at some station back or beyond. They will show, great alacrity in settling that. But what about all these pensioners who have put money in fixed deposits? And her reply was that, look, all I can do is send it to the ministry concerned. Who's heading the ministry? The finance minister. It's Arun Jaitley. What does he mean he won't reply? So he's putting us through this pain. I mean, you look at all the things that we're discussing today, okay? Fixed deposits, they've lost their money. We are talking about interest rates going down. It's an article that we just wrote before I came here. It's up on our website, saying you're taking advantage of this to quickly reduce deposit rates, which means, again, people like us, our money in the bank, you're going to get less interest. You can't move it to a new bank, which may not be reducing interest rates, like a Bandhan Bank or an IDFC, because you're not allowed to withdraw. I mean, you are allowing larger people to take advantage of it. Are you listening to the Aam Aadmi? I don't think you are.
Okay. On another front, Mr. Joshi, there's another criticism that the government, before the election, the Prime Minister promised that I will bring back money from Panama and whatever else. There is a thinking that there is more money, more black money outside India, more Indian black money outside India than what was there in India. So this whole demonetization will affect only the money which was in Indian currency. But what about the assets? What about the money that is lying outside India? Do you see any sort of concrete plans, to bring it back? Any action being taken to bring it back? And if at all that happens, in a big way, how would that impact the economy?
I don't think it's happening in a big way. It's already 2.5 years now. So I mean, and there's very little transparency with respect to that for whatever reason. So I don't even know what the quantum of money is. I mean, it's all speculation unless somebody makes it. I mean, gives you a concrete evidence. You can only guess that it's large. And I mean, I won't. I mean, I don't see the foreign money coming in. I don't see the domestic black money menace getting sorted out very quickly. It's going to be a slow grind. I mean, and provided government takes some more steps to address it. I think the good news is that the technology or digitalization of payment, cashless economy, this is something that leaves a trail, and it's very difficult to avoid that. And now I think many people are being forced into the cashless system because of this problem. It's not the right way to do it, but they are getting forced. So I think that all those things, if the exchequer wants, I think he can easily control at least a part of the generation of black money through more information at their hands. But about foreign money, I don't have much information. I mean, I also read from the papers. You would know better.
No, no, I'm just saying maybe people in this audience can confirm it. But today we got a call from someone who says that in the unofficial market, the value of the rupee has sunk to 100 to 120 to per dollar. Okay, so we're talking about it being 70 officially, and it's supposed to be 100, which means that money is rapidly flowing out. People have got systems, and even at a time like this, they've figured out how to send money out rather than bring it back. I don't know if you also have heard this.
No, about this foreign money, there are specific moves which are already taken. Okay, under PMLA, suspicious transaction reporting is already in force, and Hassan Ali Khan was caught under that only. So we must remember that that law is already operative. Now the agreements similar to FATCA agreement have been signed with 90 countries. 1st January 2017 onwards, Income Tax Department will be flooded with information of Indian citizens having black money all over the world. Several tax havens have signed these agreements, including Switzerland. Lot of information will come. People holding black money abroad in banks and financial institutions not taking steps today in 6 months time will be in very serious position.
Well,
Yeah,
that's very good news if that actually happens.
yeah, yeah. Right. The exchange of information, which is going to happen automatically, not even you don't have to ask for it, but it is going to be volunteered. That is a great move, and that is an international sort of phenomenon, not merely restricted to India. So that is, of course, going to be important. Uh, Mr. Joshi, in the international scenario, where in USA, Europe, Japan, China, Russia, everywhere there are problems, uh, there are economic difficulties. The Brexit vote in UK and as you touched upon, the Trump victory in USA are believed to be reactionary, reactionary events by people hurt by the bad economy. In this situation, a bold step like this, which is really out. I mean, nobody expected this to happen suddenly. Do you think that timing is also wrong, or that we have to do this, we have to do this, you can't wait any longer?
Well, I think if you look at what's happening around the world, I think you mentioned Brexit and US.
Hmm.
I think the why the right-wing forces are becoming strong. The reason is not very difficult to figure out. I think people have been pointing out that inequality has been rising. There's a French author called Thomas Piketty. He's written a big book on that issue. Uh, Clearly, I think the trend in the last few years was of globalization, countries getting connected, more trade, exports growing, uh, countries exporting and importing with each other on an increasing basis. Now, the logic that the economists gave was that the trading partners, both of them, will be well off. So that has been true. I mean, both, for instance, if China trades with United States has also gained, China has also gained as an economy as a whole. But there is a distributional impact of trade, which was ignored for a long time. Not everybody in the country benefits out of that. In US, what happened was what is called premature deindustrialization. The the American industry before it could fully mature, it got substituted by the Chinese because Chinese had world class infrastructure and cheap labor, so they could produce much better stuff, and Americans got that stuff, and so it hollowed out a lot of middle class in United States. Their wages have not risen for last 20 years. They're stagnant wages. Similarly, in Europe also, I think you're seeing something similar happen. So there are a lot of people who are feeling left out of this growth process. So that's a reaction to that. In France, I think in elections are due, you might be surprised by a right-wing party there also. So I think clearly the issue is, I mean, between haves and have-nots. I mean, if people are feeling that they are being left out of the growth process, they are going to react, and that's
Hmm.
going to happen everywhere. So it's very, very critical for. I mean, I'm not talking of demonetization alone, but in general, I think in an economy where you are adding 1 million people to the workforce every month, and I think if I look at the global scenario, if 100 jobs need to be created in the world in the next 10 years, 17 out of those 100 will need to be created in India because Indian demographics are so vibrant. So I think the point is I would not advocate that government increasing subsidies, etc. I think the lesson from United States and also from UK is clearly that you have to prepare people to participate in the growth process, the transformation that is taking place. And United States completely failed. I was in October in United States, US, I think for the IMF annual meeting, and the top economists like Larry Summers, etc., they all have a very simple prescription. They said government should now move out of the monetary policy thing. I mean, that's whatever is, you can't cut interest rates further. The quantitative easing is gone. They should be creating infrastructure and they should be skilling people. That is the policy prescription, unanimous policy prescription for United States. And if you look at for India, you will say, oh, this is the right thing to do for India as well. So I think the point is, I think we are much low per capita income country, and I think the demographics are in our favor. So we should ensure that people who are not left behind. Otherwise, you will see a similar reactionary action here also. I mean, it's and the Democrats completely failed to see what I mean. They were saying that these guys are deplorables, the who are supporting Trump, and those guys were not deplorable. They had actually suffered. I mean, they had been hollowed out for no fault of theirs, so they had to react. So I think this is a very important thing, and I think at this juncture, so it's very important that the message goes out to the people that this is not to hurt the poor people. This is rather to redistribute wealth. I think that message has to.
It's an interesting point that you make because the BJP has had this lesson before. They called elections slightly earlier last time. They had the India Shining campaign, and because that didn't reach the grassroots, they lost once before.
Absolutely.
And it could happen again because today there's again talk about the PM will do this and do that, and he'll have early elections. I think they have to start listening.
No, I think you have to see what I think there was I think if I may just take a minute
yeah, of
to.
course.
I think I was reading a blog by someone, and he was analyzing the Democrats, why Democrats lost. So, and I think the role of internet and social media and all that. So what the internet and social media does is it creates echo chambers. I mean echo chambers. So people talk to each other, they like each other, they offer similar views. They're completely cut off from what's happening in the other domain, and you just hurling abuses or whatever you have at them. So in this scenario, so this huge amount of information flow, which was supposed to enlighten us, is actually making us more biased. And this is, I mean, many people argue that the social media played this role in increasing the divide between. So Democrats could never understand what was going on in the Republican front because anybody supporting Trump was seen as a deplorable, as somebody who who has low IQ or whatever. I mean, you want to put it. It was not the case. So I think so. People are re-evaluating the social media relevance for how it is shaping up. So it is adding a lot of efficiency to whatever we do, but it's also I think creating these biases. And this is a very powerful device. Now things spread very quickly. It's not that if somebody is dying somewhere standing in a queue, everybody in India will know next day. I mean it's not 1978. The information flow is very very fast. So
Yeah, true. So there's a demand from the president of the BCA that I talk a little bit about tax because at the end of it, tax is our bread and butter, for a lot of chartered accountants. So there is one big controversy going on about the penalty under Section 270 capital A. People are saying that if I deposit cash into my bank account, say 10 lakh rupees, and I consider it as my income for the current year, and pay the advance tax on it by 15 December and 15 March, and then include it in my taxable in my return of income, then can the income tax department levy penalty under Section 270 capital A on the ground that I've either underreported my income or misreported my income. Basically, 270A is the new avatar of Section 270 and 1C, as all the CAs would know in this room. It's a raging controversy, and it has arisen because right at the beginning, I think in social media, I think Mr. Shaktikanta Das or somebody or the other or Hasmukh Adya made this statement that in this we will will levy tax, we will levy penalty. So this is something that we are grappling with. That if you have already declared that income in your return of income and paid the tax during the year, can they penalize you at 200% of the tax? It appears that this threat is not in line with the law as it stands today. As of now, as we speak, while speaking, I don't know whether they have brought out a notification amending the section, but as we speak today, 270A cannot be applied by the government on this particular in this kind of a situation, because he has already offered it for tax. So there is no question of the department being able to say that this is underreported or misreported, etc. However, the question still remains that can they ask you to prove that it is actually current year's income? And if you are not able to prove that for whatever reason, can they then take a stand that no, this is not this year's income, we will remove it from your current year's income, computation of income, and then we will reopen a past year and tax it in that year. Now, reopening of past year's assessment is not easy. It has there's a process laid down. There is approvals required, etc. However, looking at the way in which the government is going about attacking this particular issue, we would not be surprised if they bring about amendments in the law, either on the reopening front or in the section 270A itself, and carving out. I understand that, but I don't see a problem. The session is going on. There is no reason why they cannot change it. So what I'm saying is, I'm not saying that there will be a change. What I'm saying is that it is possible that looking at the way the steps are being taken almost on a daily basis, we had an amendment in Rule 114 B and 114E. Today, Rule 12E has been introduced into the income tax rules. We don't know how many more amendments will come. That being the case, we need to be careful about the amendments that are possible. Now, question is that can they amend it retrospectively? Now, retrospective means what? That can we as citizens take a stand that an amendment brought out in the month of December to levy penalty under 270A on income deposited into the bank account in November, is that a retrospective amendment? That is something that we need to think about, whether it is or not. But I don't see why it is not possible for them to bring about an amendment, especially only looking at the cash deposits between 9th November and 30th December, and saying that in respect of this income which is offered for tax, we may levy penalty, maybe 50%, 100%, whatever. There are chances that amendments on this front could come. So we need to be careful about that. Then there are a lot of questions from common people that we want to deposit 2,40,000 in my minor son's account, or in my daughter who has just become a major, or in the daughter-in-law's name, or whatever, any other family member. Suddenly people have discovered that they have a mother lying in an old age home, or a father lying in an old age home, and suddenly that bank account of that parent has become important. These are the selfish people who are now trying to think of ways. But whether it is selfish or otherwise, the question arises that if you deposit X amount into the bank, which is not reported to the government, but less than 2,50,000, can the department still add it as income if they come across that case during scrutiny? So I see there is no prohibition on them. Neither have they said that we will not tax it if we find it. The only thing that they have clearly said and have stuck to that is that that will not get reported by the bank to the income tax department. That being the case, if at a later stage, if a deposit of 2,40,000 is discovered by the income tax department into somebody's bank account, and inquiry is made, if that case is selected for scrutiny, they have every right to tax it if proper explanation is not given. So we need to be careful about advising people on this particular matter. Then there is also
But just to ask a question there, I think apart from what they've said, even the PM and some ministers have come out and said, we understand that people would be salting away small amounts of money and housewives. Now, if they really go after people who have put in less than 2.5 lakhs, these are all already taxpayers, then it won't it be politically sort of
Yeah,
yeah, negative, because
I
you're harassing people. You have gone on television and you have told people. Now each of us is also getting SMSs from banks, which according to me are misleading, saying come and deposit any amount of money. It's not any amount of money. The government is very clear that there are consequences after 2.5 lakhs. There are more consequences after 10 lakhs. So why shouldn't banks word these correctly and say not any amount? You know, deposit carefully.
I have a different view on that, a different way of looking at it. As I mentioned earlier in my introductory remarks, that there are two aspects to this. One is the issue of depositing into the bank account, and the other is the tax implications. Both are connected, yes, but from a banking perspective, I you can deposit, why two and a half? You can deposit 250 crores, 2,500 crores. There is no bar. Only problem is that you have to explain it, So that is the main issue. That are you in a position to explain the source of that money? Now you mentioned that if they do this, it would be suicidal and not correct, because it will be going against all the averments in public made by the various people. Uh, The the ca- uh, the cases that I am talking about are not those. The cases I am talking about are, let us say there is a family, where there are 10 family members, and the income tax department, with the help of analytical tools, is able to find out that all 10 members of the family have deposited 2,40,000 rupees cash in every person's bank account. There it is a clear case. I mean, it could be a clear case of mischief being played, 24 lakhs being converted from black to white by trying to go under this particular leniency which the government is showing. In those kind of cases, I don't see, as a tax professional, as a citizen of the country, I don't see anything wrong if the government goes after that guy and taxes one particular person or all of them on the entire 2,40,000 each deposited into the bank account. Those are the cases that I'm talking about, not the simple cases, which I started with, that a housewife or a senior citizen or any one person putting money in his account, fine. All family members putting 240 or 2 lakh, the Bata rate, 2,49,999 into their accounts, I think that is going to invite trouble. And while it may not be reported by the by the bank to the income tax department, there are various ways of finding out. Even if one family member's case comes up for scrutiny in the normal case, nothing to do with the demonetization. And in the scrutiny, they have every right to ask who are your family members, what is their income, etc. They may ask for the copies of the bank accounts. God forbidding, if that's one person who has earned the black money and who has put in 240 in all the family members, and if he is a joint holder in all the bank accounts, he has to show the details of the bank account in his return of income. So it is all open before the department. The data is already available to them. It is only a question of analyzing the data and pinpointing
But
the
if,
wrongdoings.
as you said, they pay tax on it
No,
for
I'm
this
saying
year,
is not
then
paid. If they pay tax, then of course, then the only question remains is of the penalty, which, as I said, at present it appears that it is not possible. If there is an amendment, then we don't know what will happen. But here, people are brazenly doing this left, right, and center, putting 2,50,000 in all the family members and saying it is all out of savings. I'm talking about those kind of cases, and even there, it's very interesting that we began with a stand that up to 250,000 there will be no reporting and inquiry. Now, if you see the amendment in Rule 114E, which talks about the reporting requirements by banks to the income tax department, the wording says that where it is 250,000 or more, it will be reported. So whoever has put in exactly 250,000, thinking he is very smart, that is going to get reported, and there will be number of cases like that. Number of cases, people have gone and put exact 250,000. All those cases are going to get reported. So I think it is, if the tax evaders try to be one step ahead, the income tax department, the government is trying to be one and a half steps ahead of them through these measures.
Madam, Modi assured in this UP that मैं बहनों को और ये हमारी संपत्ति नहीं दूंगा. That is the word he will speak.
Yeah.
So we should have at least faith in
Absolutely, yeah. except certain Matajis, who are and Benji. Yeah, yeah. But I think we're getting into politics. The political part, let us leave aside. Let us just talk about the law, the act, the Income Tax Act, sir. So,
Plus, the tax department may not necessarily be aligned with his political statements. So they will say, this is the law, we are following it, we will ask the questions.
possible. Only good. The silver lining is that at present the tax department is not able to cope up with the work that they already have. If they are going to start scrutinizing 1 crore people in the country, in addition to what is existing, is going to break down. There will be no way they'll be able to do it unless they bring in some extra. Up till now, income tax department has been providing staff on deputation to other departments of the government. It will be reverse flow. That from other department they'll have to bring into the income tax department if they start increasing the number of scrutinies. Uh, Happy to say that there are more people online than in the audience today. So, three cheers for the technology initiatives of the society. Coming to the end of our discussion, Mr. Joshi, we are seeing on TV, in newspapers, photographs, etc., of long queues before ATMs, people waiting to withdraw. Some of them, now that the indelible ink has been brought in, the queues have become half, which leads us to believe that some of them were paid to just stand in the queues, etc. But whatever it may be, a lot of time has been wasted on the queues. That is national man hours wasted just to withdraw money from the bank. Obviously, that is permanent loss. Any thoughts on how much time would have got lost in this last 1 week?
I really don't know. I mean,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
going by the lines, the queues, I think it would be quite a bit. And I think, as you said, I think people are very innovative. Some people are also making money out of this. I mean, who are otherwise idle, they are standing in line. I mean, I've seen that. See, yeah, so I think it depends on how you view it, but yes, I think it's a I mean, if I were to look at myself, I mean, I also feel inconvenienced. I mean, I mean, maybe I'm a special client of the bank, so they'll help me out, but there are so many others who are not benefiting from. So I mean, to convert it into, I think it can be done by some rule of thumb, but I haven't done that number crunching as yet, because I don't think we have not even revised our GDP growth outlook, which we'll do soon, because I don't think we have enough information right now. I think we have more noise than information, and unless I get the information, I can't take a call.
And lot of noise is made by the empty vessels. As I say, we are drawing to a close. If there are any specific questions from the audience, we would be happy to take them. But please wait for the mic to come to you and then speak into the mic. Yeah, yeah. And remember, we are not representing the government nor the opposition. Yeah.
So the solution to the problem is have all transactions by check, cash 2000 up to 2000, above that transaction by check. Secondly, put the governor's photo, the prime minister's photo, the finance minister's photo on the notes. Black money will be wiped out. No need of people standing in the queue. Third, stop all vouchers and receipts of companies. They exaggerated this. Fourth, stop unlimited current accounts. That is a cheating. And GST, manufacturers, retailers, traders, wholesalers, distributors, and consumers. 6 people are there. Put 3% each. No passover tax. No passover. When you put the GST tax, no passover. So 6 people in the line, 3% will get 18%. 6% you give to the municipality, 6% give the state government, 6% will give to the central government. This is a solution to the problem. Thank you.
Thank
Not understood. You all don't have that. Or you all are in the cheating.
No, but if you allow us to absorb your series of questions, then we'll be able to answer. We are waiting for one question, but yeah. Okay, yeah. You know.
Excuse me. Probably before 6:15, I was quite optimistic about this demonetization scheme, but after listening to the talk by the economist as well as by the journalist, I'm a little bit disappointed in the sense that are we going for a destabilization of economy? Are we heading for trouble? Is there any problem? Is the demonetization scheme has been launched keeping the elections in mind in February, and is it going to have an adverse impact on the fate of the BJP party? Would you like to react?
Okay, I think it's too early to tell, and I think most of us who support this action against black money, we are hoping that the government gets its act together and does something really fast. But 10 days is already a long time, and I think we also beginning to realize that some of the things they said, like terrorism, as Mr. Joshi said, the American currency is the most counterfeited, but they haven't done demonetization. So we know that the amount of fake currency was only 0.003%. But you had a very favorable media, ranting for 3 hours telling you that this is done to kill terrorism in the country. I think, not everyone. There were 3, 4 channels who were doing it. I think some of this is, Jumla, and there are no elections. So there will be a price to be paid if they don't get their act together. But, people are tolerant. There's huge support right down to the grassroots level. People are helping each other. Guys who are hawking things like kelas, even they're wholesalers. I mean, you heard about APMC market. Most people have come back and told us that people are saying, "ठीक है, कल दे देना, next week दे देना." An industrialist told me that his daily wage workers told him that we know there's a problem, pay us after 20 days. Okay? If this kind of thing has happened, then it is all the more imperative that with this level of support at the lowest level, if you don't get your act together, there'll be a huge price to be paid. And I think people are watching and they want to destabilize it precisely for that.
Yeah, and also there's no pain, no gain, as they say. But on the issue of banking, I think all of us would have read that message on WhatsApp that Krantikari, from Pune, had met Mr. Modi, who gave him very patient listening and all that. That they should do away with Income Tax Act and bring in a banking transaction. The problem that is what the Prime Minister started his innings with. That everybody open the bank accounts. So the move. With reference to your question, that initiative has begun, but to get 130 crore people to open bank account it's not easy. The banking sector also needs to be able to cope with that. More than half the Jan Dhan bank accounts are zero balance. Now suddenly they will all have 50,000 rupees. That's a different matter. But otherwise, it's easier said than done. It's a Herculean task to convert a completely cash dominated economy into a official check driven economy. But your point is well taken.
Yeah, this is for Mr. Joshi. You are in the credit rating agency. So how do you rate India after the demonetization?
Companies in India, India is rated by Standard and Poor's, and I think they've already let their views known that it's going to. I mean, India will have to wait for a upgrade. I think that's the official communication because it's that. I mean, there are several reasons that they have given. So I mean, I'm not authorized to comment on India's credit rating, and but what I would say is that the first derivative effect of some of the moves that government took, whether it is the bankruptcy code or it's the goods and services tax getting cleared in the parliament, is already getting reflected in the international benchmarks. The second round effect, which is on the ground when the economy will feel, is yet to come. India has already been notched up in the World Economic Forum's competitiveness rank by 30 points. I mean, we talk of corruption, but India is moving down on a relative basis, I think, on corruption index globally. Its logistics ranking is improving. So there are some visible implications of what government has started doing. It is work in progress, and I think only when it starts getting felt on the ground, it will start having an impact on the economy. I think then we can talk about how the credit rating agencies are viewing it. I think it is still all the initiatives, whether it is in the power sector or it is in the banking sector or it is the bankruptcy code. I mean, I've heard enough about the bankruptcy code, a lot of commentary. It's not going to be effective in 1 or 2 years' time. It's going to take 2 to 3 years' time. So it is all work in progress. All good news is that whatever the Modi government has done so far, it is aimed at raising the growth potential of the economy. They are not trying to create quick growth. I mean, which through either interest rate cuts or through fiscal policy. So it is raising the potential. Manmohan Singh government did structural reforms in 91, and it actually the visible impact was in the decade of 2000. So when you raise the potential of the economy, it pays off at the right time. So I think the steps are in the right direction, but it's a long way to go. I mean.
Sir, how you are looking at multiple deposits, especially taxability? And then this is linked with the accepting of 500 notes after 8 December. A businessman has to, in a single way, he should deposit whatever cash balance is
Okay,
available in
yeah,
cash book or
understood.
subsequent.
So the question is that if I have cash, should I go and deposit all the cash at one go in one bank account, or should I, break it up into 2, 3 parts and go to different accounts, or in the same account but in 2, 3 installments? My personal view, which I have already given to some clients, is that if you have cash on hand and you are going to deposit it, better thing to do would be to deposit everything at one shot in one account. My simple logic for that is that if you, for example, you have, and I'm talking about genuine cases. I'm not talking about the bogus ones. You're a businessman. You have cash on hand as per your balance sheet of say 7 lakhs, for example, and you want to deposit it. Now, if it is genuinely available with you, what is preventing you from going to a bank tomorrow and putting it all into your account at one shot? Nothing. Instead of that, if you go tomorrow, put 1 lakh, after 6 days you go and put another 2 lakhs, and so on and so forth. Remember, the total amount being more than 250,000 or 12.5 lakhs in the case of current account, it is going to get reported. Now, when that reporting happens, the officer is going to see that this man has gone on different dates, put different amounts in his account, and he is claiming that it is all genuine money lying in his cash on hand. There seems to be something wrong. Let me check his accounts. Let me check his records and try to find out whether he has played around. He's tried to manipulate his cash expenses, remove the cash expenses from the cash book, and put in cash into the bank account. So I would feel that multiple deposits will arouse suspicion and are avoidable. That is my personal view.
But the simple reason is that queues are going up right up to the road.
I understand.
There is a case of putting.
No. So, Praveen bhai, I understand. Now, we can find multiple reasons to justify not going. No, Praveen, what I'm saying is that there is no hurry to go. No, if you are going to go tomorrow and put 1 lakh, after 10 days, at the end of it, the queue is going to be, whether you go tomorrow and put 1 lakh or 7 lakh, the queue is going to be same. If you go after a month, the queues are not going to be there in all probability. At that time, put the entire amount. Unless you have a security problem and you are scared of keeping cash on hand, that's a different matter. But prima facie, this is my view. There could obviously be two views on this. Yeah. Yeah. Maybe last and after him, the vice president.
Implications on VAT and service tax of cash deposit.
Of course, there will be implications. So, as I was, when I'm talking to a client, I tell them that don't be in a hurry. That is why, if you see even the BCA Society's request, which we have sent out on on Twitter, etc., we are suggesting don't panic and don't be in a rush. Don't be in a hurry to go and deposit the money, because whatever you do is going to have multiple. He talked about the global village. Today, even in our own economy, there is multiple ways of catching a person who is doing something wrong. For example, people are suggesting that I have sold scrap and now I want to deposit 5 lakhs. Everyone knows that is all scrap itself. That whole idea. But there is a TCS on sale of scrap. Now, is that compliance done? If not done, are you going to do it now? It's obvious that you suddenly woke up that in October you sold scrap, in September you sold scrap, got cash on hand, and now you are, the compliance is being done. So same way VAT, same way service tax, 101% there will be implications. So we need to be careful about that. Yeah.
Mr. Modi gave enough time to everybody to clean up their books. You can see whatever he has tried to get the money from abroad. Even ICD, this income declaration scheme, also gave a lot of money. It is not that within 6 months he has demonetized. He has taken 2.5 years after giving enough chance. So I don't think so. Why should there be a lot of criticism upon the whole move of demonetization and rollback and apart from politics?
Hello. So
Just,
yesterday,
just 1 minute. Let her respond to that question.
Just a little reaction. It's a very interesting point you make because every day we are getting SMSs from fairly senior chartered accountants on this whole 220% tax issue and saying, don't worry, there's no tax. And I remember when IDS was going on, the Economic Times quoted lawyers anonymously saying, oh, we have told our clients, don't worry, kuch darne ka nahi, they won't do anything. I mean, today, whoever that client is who listened to that advice is in serious trouble, right? Because he would have sat on cash. Even now, all this advice I notice is coming from former chief commissioners of income tax. They have nothing to lose. I mean, if you believe that you're putting 50 lakhs and nothing's going to happen and you'll show it as this year's income, it's only you who will face the music and probably go back to them and pay them money to represent you when you're fighting. Isn't it? So I feel that a lot of advice that is coming to people is constantly wrong and advising them, don't worry, because we know next in line is property. It's announced already. They have said we are going after property. So if people don't, listen, then I think it's really dangerous.
Yeah, I entirely agree with you. The last
so
question.
yesterday I happened to attend a seminar of one of our fellow members of the fraternity, who is also the national secretary of Institute of Bullion and Jewelry Association. He shared a very interesting fact. He said that the government has given out the data that 14,20,000 rupees of currency in form of 500 and 1,000 rupees note is in circulation. And then he gave the data that 6 lakh crores is already with the banks, 4 lakh crores is with the central government, state governments and other big corporate houses. Now he says the bigger problem of the government is not that they will get some less currency. He says even in a week's time, 3 lakh crore has already come into the system. Now he says that he is already working with the ministry on this. So he says that the problem of the government is that more currency will flow into the system. It means that there will be a big time exposure of a scam that duplicate currency was printed, which is not fake currency, duplicate currency using the machinery of RBI or something. Maybe the previous governments have done it or the officials have done it. So this is what is your opinion? Is it possible?
Looks like a conspiracy theory to me. I mean, many are floated, so I think it's very hard. I mean, I have no way to check the whereabouts of what you're saying. I mean,
Ma'am, I would request you, since you are a journalist, you can work out the data and on the numbers, whether is it possible or not.
I think the numbers we'll have to wait for what the banks tell us. So if the banks collect more than 14 lakh, then obviously what you say is correct. But we'll have to just wait and watch till 30th December.
They are saying that 6 lakh crore is already lies with the bank. So bank already have the data of 8th November. And the 4 lakh crores lies with the state government and central government and other big corporate houses. So,
so point taken. We'll let's see how things evolve over the next few days. Yeah. So thank you very much, everyone. It has been a pleasure having all of you over here in such large numbers and online. And may I please request all of you who have patiently waited to just wait for 2 more minutes. And I request Pooja to propose a vote of thanks to the panelists, to the 2 panelists. Yeah.
Before I proceed with the vote of thanks, I would request our president to hand over the photos to the panel members.
Online. Yeah. We are trying to match the speed of the government in coming out with notifications. Thank you.
Friends, you will all agree this was an insightful discussion helping us decipher the difference between noise and information. We're all wiser than what we were when we entered this room. For this, on behalf of the BCS and on behalf of all of us, I would like to thank all the panel members. Thank you so much. I would request everybody to carry out this vote of thanks with a loud round of applause.